It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm Jane Harrison, who's leading the Impact programme, which is the Short Breaks programme, one of the SEN delivery partners, and Suzanne Haywood is one of the strategic advisors. So we're just going to take you through a brief presentation really about the work that we're doing and what we've done so far since we started the contract. And really what I want to be able to do is to give you an opportunity to ask us some questions at the end. So if we trot through the presentation and then we can open that out for discussion if that's all right. Just really to those of you who probably know, but many of you may not, that Impact's a new partnership between Serco. That was, you might remember, the Together for Disabled Children programme that led on the Aiming High contract. So part of that programme and Short Breaks Network, who were formerly Shared Care Network. And I think it's really important just to say that in terms of this new partnership, obviously Short Breaks Network have a lot of experience working with providers and doing workforce development. And part of our work is about embedding short breaks and supporting the voluntary sector to sustain and embed short breaks. So it's quite a key partner really in terms of Short Breaks Network, and we're really excited about that. So it's a new partnership and we're working with all 152 local authorities in England. And part of it is really about supporting that sector-led approach, because we know that we've done a lot of work through the previous programme, but we need to get to a point where that's sustained and embedded. And part of it is about supporting the sector to be able to do that. So we do have a small team, quite a discrete team, and it's probably based on a similar model to what Contact a Family have adopted in terms of having regional strategic advisors. So we've got one whole-time equivalent in each of the 3 regions, and they are supported by a team of regional coordinators, and we have some support to develop website and some distinct support around supporting training and events. So quite a discrete team there. But we do have obviously support through associates. So if we need some specialist support or we need some parental input, then we can use that through the associate team that we have. Okay, thanks. So what we're delivering. I think it's just really important to say that from the discussions that we've had so far and the work that we've heard from Kerry and the work that we've heard from Sue and Anna, that actually, and as you hear throughout the rest of the afternoon, we can just see where, whilst we're delivering on a particular theme, we can see where it actually fits in with everything else. And we're really keen, wherever possible, to maximise the resources we've got, to share the learning, and to actually add value. But central to all of that is the work of parents and the views of parents. So I think that's fundamentally, whilst we're working with local authorities, we're very conscious that parent and carers and the voice of the child and young person needs to feed through that process as well. I think it's just the first priority that really we had to do was about helping local authorities to deliver their legal obligations to support short breaks. Now, we know that the short breaks duty came into effect 1st of April last year, and local authorities were expected to produce and publish their statement by October. Can I just have a show of hands at this point to see how many parents are actually involved in producing the statement for their local authority? All right, well, that's good. That's reassuring, that's great. Yeah. I mean, Susan will talk a little bit about some of the findings we've had and the percentage of parents who were involved, so that's really good. But there were, however, a number that hadn't produced them, so we've been working with them. As I've said, in terms of how we're working now with local authorities, I think it would be fair to say that during the previous programme we were quite directive of how we were working with local authorities, and that was very deliberate because we knew we needed to accelerate short breaks and to get to a good level. Now I think it's about embedding it and facilitating the sector to actually drive it forward, and we're working with the sector to do that through sector champions. But also I was really encouraged about what in terms of Sue's presentation about the parent-to-parent support. And I suppose that's similar to what we would have with our champions in terms of that local authority to local authority support. So that just all supports that sector development. I think we need to, in terms of the voluntary sector and community sector, Philippa in her presentation said quite clearly that the voluntary sector are really quite challenged about embedding and sustaining their work, and we're certainly seeing it from the short breaks side of it, that we need to ensure that the quality's there, ensure that the provision's there. And I think a particular challenge going forward will be with the personalisation agenda, in terms of making sure that we've got the right workforce with the right skills to give that choice and flexibility that parents need and very rightly will demand. So I think that's going to be quite a key area for us. And we know that's at a time when perhaps local authority funding's been cut to voluntary sector organisations and they've actually been quite squeezed. So I think there's something about helping local authorities to actually understand the market and how they need to develop that market locally. So we'll be doing work on that. And I think sharing the learning, and I think, looking at what works well, looking what doesn't work well. And when I say sharing the learning, not just from the short breaks point of view, but from the parents' point of view, and making sure that we're listening to the views and that your views are being used to inform service developments and service planning really with local authorities. Okay. So in terms of a local offer to local authorities, this is what we're offering as a minimum offer. And it's just really important to say at this point that the approach is very different to what was previously under the Together for Disabled Children, and very much on a sector-led development and self-assessment of progress. And I think it's about creating that transparency with local authorities so they're actually quite honest about where they are in that position. And you might be relieved that there's no more LAMP for those of you who might have been involved with data collection. We did demand a lot of information and a lot of challenge to local authorities about collecting data. But it's actually quite reassuring that a majority of local authorities have continued to collect data in a way that makes sense. So I think that's really encouraging. We want to really offer differentiated support to local authorities, so it's not a one-size-fits-all, and we need to accelerate progress and embed and sustain short breaks. We know we got to a good point, and a lot of areas reached the golden target of 1.2% of the population, but we know that there were some authorities that fell under that, and we need to support them to kind of challenge them on actually, how far do you need to reach, and are there groups of children in your area that you're not reaching? And we do know from doing some initial baseline survey that there are groups of children who certainly local authorities are finding it more difficult to provide services for. So we are working with them to try and address that. I think it's fair to say that a key priority is about that practical and strategic help around the short breaks duty. And for me, it's not just about, we can get them to a point where they've done their statement. We know that the guidance said you've got to have X, Y, and Z in your statement. And I can probably tell some of the authorities that have just ticked that box. So I think the important thing for us going on is that actually we're able to see that what they've said they will provide and how they'll provide it is actually being implemented. So we will be reviewing their statements with them and supporting them to actually reflect on what that means for them as an authority and for them with their parents as well. We have already delivered throughout this quarter regional cluster groups in all of the areas, all of the regions and sub-regions. And I think we're just finishing off the last ones today, this week really. And that's given us an opportunity to really explore with the local authorities what some of the issues are for them with short breaks. And I think initially some of the early indications are that they're going to be really challenged with personalisation, they're going to be challenged with providing the breadth of short breaks and the range of short breaks, and there are particular groups of children such as those with complex health needs that are challenging local authorities in particular. So what we're doing is obviously working through that with them and looking at where we've got examples of good practice that we can share across local authorities. And we will be running having thematic discussions and events, and just for information, we're through May to early July, I think it is, we're running annual regional events in each of the 9 regions, and we're doing that in collaboration with Contact a Family. So we will have places for parents at that event, or at those events as well. So we've just about confirmed all of the dates. So we'll send those off to make sure Sue gets those. But we'll be working with Helen and Sue to actually make sure that the parent forums are aware of these dates. And then we can look at that. And we're also using those events as an opportunity to involve the other delivery partners as well, to have much more of a joined up approach. And they're actually, our events are called Bringing It All Together. So, because we want, and it's about improving outcomes for children at the end of the day. Oh gosh, right, I've got to move on. Well, I'll move on to Susan.
Okay. Okay then, can we have the next slide please, Sue? Right, following on then very quickly from what Jane was saying, really, so it's sort of, so what have we been doing really since we started work last October? We've carried out baseline surveys with all 152 local authorities across England. And we realised, because there'd been a gap between the end of the Aiming High programme and the start of the our new programme, short break programme, there'd been a gap. And we wanted to find out where local authorities were, what their feelings were, where they felt they may need some support, any issues that they were identifying. And we've collected a lot of information which we have analysed and are producing a report to the effect at the moment. But that's helped us form how we're going to move forward and how we're going to continue to support local authorities in their work. Interestingly, 2 main things came out of that. One was that since the end of Aiming High and programme finished at the end of March, there's been significant changes within local authorities. A lot of local authorities are undertaking immense restructuring and have got new short break leads, if they've got a short break lead at all. And I'm sure some of you as parent forums may have found it difficult to engage with your local authority, or more difficult to engage with your local authority than you did perhaps under the Aiming High programme. So it's taken a little while for local authorities to get back into the swing around short breaks and to realise that we're there now to continue to support them. That's one thing. The other thing is that a lot of them have had major budget cuts, which is impacting on the way they're able to work with the voluntary sector and their parent forums and continue to deliver short breaks. So we're looking at ways at how we can move forward and support them with that. So what we're offering and have been offering is a number of thematic workshops. And so between April and October, we've developed a number of workshops which are up on the slide there, looking around the short break duty statement, personalisation, and also looking around to do with the health reforms. We'll continue to respond to the support needs of local authorities, and future workshops are being planned from the autumn term as well. Part of our work, a large part of our work, is to support local authorities with the development of their short break statement. And we've looked at every single short break statement so far. 151 of those have been published and put onto local authorities' websites so far. And we have two outstanding statements from local authorities which will continue to work very closely with those areas. Interestingly, about 70%, it was interesting what we'll put your hands up earlier, 70% of local authorities are saying they consulted with parents on their statement. Less so, though, have consulted with children and young people, and that's an area that we're going to work with local authorities to help them develop that work. We have 12 sector champions who are working closely with us to support and do peer-to-peer support work and help us with our cluster events as well.
And I'll just finish off just by saying that obviously in terms of the regional events, they're all going on as I've said, and just really to say that as part of the structure of Impact and Contact Family, we have established a joint advisory board so that we can share the information and intelligence, because one of the things that gets raised quite rightly is that local authorities have a view and tell us, you know, through the baseline survey and through the statement, etc., of the position of their work with parent forums. But then we need to just make sure that we triangulate that with talking to Sue about what actually the parents are saying, because, you know, what the local authority might be saying might not actually reflect what's actually happening in terms of the parents. So we have had that opportunity to share that intelligence, and we're using that to actually plan the work. So, for example, doing joint pieces of work really between between the strategic advisors of impact and contact of family, and that's working well. And we would, you know, just look forward to that being something that continues as we go on. And just lastly, really, just we've got a website that's just about to go up. Really, that'll be fully. We do have a website that's available now, but it's not complete. Short Bricks Network are hosting our website because we didn't want to deconstruct a website at the end of the programme like we did with TDC, because there's a lot of good information there. And in terms of voluntary sector sustainability, we thought it would be good to have it on Short Bricks Network's website. So we've got it embedded within their existing website, but there is a new website scheduled for April. So just keep watching that, and you'll see that develop. But we have got a number of case studies and innovative sustainable practice examples on there now already. So we'll just develop that. And just as I've said previously, we want to maximise resources and work together and do joint work as much as possible. So we have established an events calendar which is available for all of the delivery partners to be able to put their events on and to look for, you know, if we're holding an event, is that an opportunity for them to join in? So that's working well too. Okay, thank you very much.